Schools across the country are grappling with the mounting challenges stemming from inadequate and delayed capitation disbursement. These financial constraints have severely impacted the smooth running of many institutions, with day schools bearing the brunt of the crisis. The insufficient funding hampers the delivery of essential services, disrupts learning programs, and strains the ability of schools to meet basic operational needs. And therefore, we want to say that addressing the issues surrounding capitation is both urgent and critical. And I did want to focus on this year, 2025. Let us even forget the other years. Let us deal with the year that is currently there. Now, I want to remind you that the capitation disbursement is supposed to be 22,144 per year, divided into 50% for term 1, 30% for term 2, and 20% for term 1. And therefore you find that term 1, 30% is equivalent to 11,122. Term 2, 30% is equivalent to 6,673. And of course, term 3 is supposed to be 20%, which is 4,449, making the total of 22,144. Right from first term, we see that the capitation was not disbursed in full, because that first term we got 8,818 per child, and we were left with a balance of 2,304. In secondary schools, we have a population of 3,280,182 students. That is the population of the students we are dealing with. So when there is a balance, as it was there in first term, of 2,304, in total, it means the capitation that was not disbursed for secondary schools was 7,557,539,328. That is term 1 of this year. Let us come to term 2, where we are currently. Because this is term 2, we are in the 12th week of term 2, and the term is supposed to be 14 weeks. It is actually the longest term of 14 weeks. Now, this term, we are supposed to get 6,673, but then what we have gotten so far is 3,471, meaning there is a balance of 3,202 per student. That means of the total population of secondary school students, the amount not disbursed for term 2 is 10,503,142,764. We are talking from, that is term 2. So if we combine term 1 and term 2, what has not been disbursed to schools is 5,506 per student. 5,506 per student. That means that when you combine term 1 and term 2 2025, the amount of capitation not disbursed is 18,682,092 shillings. I repeat, 18,682,092 shillings. 18,60,682,092 shillings. That is the money not disbursed to schools, secondary schools this year, term 1 and term 2. And now we are remaining 2 weeks to close, and that money has not been disbursed. I think this term, being the longest term, giving schools 3,400 is too little. In fact, this term is the worst in the last 4 years. I'm saying it is the worst in the last 4 years because in 2022, second term, schools were given 4,289. I'm talking of second term because we are second term. In 2023, second term, schools were given 4,150. In 2024, that is last year, schools were given 4,505 in second term. This year, we are talking of 3,471. So that one is enough to show that the situation in schools is critical now. It is the least we have had in the last 4 years. So you find that the situation is really bad in schools. And we need this capitation to be released so that school can be able to run full term, and they can also be able to pay the salaries. They can also be able to pay the bills, electricity, water. They can be able to pay the suppliers. Because we shall still require these people next term. If we close to having not paid the workers this term, this month, it means even next month they will not be paid. And some have even not been paid for the other months because of the little money that has been coming. The other thing I want us to understand is that the fees set in schools. For example, by 2017, parents in those schools were paying 9,000, and the government would give 12,000. But in 2017, the parents were stopped from paying any form of fees, and the government took the 9,000 the parents were paying to make it 22,000. The government will be giving in full. But even after taking that, it is not being given. So the situation in schools, it is better when the parents. I think it was better when the parents were paying some bit of money, because there was what we call cost sharing. Because when the government maybe will not be able to give the capitation, schools would still depend on what the parents were paying. But now there is no pay. I understand even in some areas they haven't been stopped from paying lunch. And we are requesting the members of parliament who are maybe giving lunch to schools to consider giving part of the capitation that the government is not giving schools, the day schools. Because you give them lunch and they are not learning. Why can't they maybe consider sponsoring these schools as far as the capitation is concerned? Because it is very clear the schools do not have money. We can really tabulate how much each school is not being given per child. So the schools in this country are facing major crisis. And because we have heard that all others have been given the money, the county government, they have gotten the money they are supposed to get from the government. I think the only institutions that are not being given, have not been given the due are the schools. And we are requesting actually the government to give money to schools, because a lot is affected when there is no funding. As Kesha, we feel that the issue of cost sharing has to be looked into. I think time is coming when now the parents have to come in. And I think it is also time that the government will have to agree that this amount we can only be able to provide. This one we cannot provide, maybe turn to the parents. Because this has become so common, it's an annual problem. And you find right now, even for the boarding schools, the fees that has been set, although it is it is inadequate because it was set in 2014. It was set in the realization that part of the money will be coming from the government. So you are fixed 53, for example, national schools, and the 22 to come from government. So if that 22 does not come, it affects the whole budget, including to what the parents were supposed to have paid. So we are saying that, in fact, apart from this capitation, but if you did the count, if you check the daily learning of schools for a day school, our calculations has put the capitation at 27,000. If a day school is actually supposed to learn properly, each child there spends 27,000 in a year. And now it has been put at 22, right? But this 22 does not come. In fact, you find that for the last, the capitation that we get, once you get this capitation, mostly it comes around 17,000. 17,000, then an amount is retained at the ministry. And then another amount is put in the infrastructure account. So what is affordable for schools to spend is 10,600 per year. The same amount that was there in 2008 when free education was started. You can imagine the cost of commodities in 2008 and 2025. It becomes difficult to push until the end of the term, and if we are able to push until the end of the term, of course we rely on the debts from suppliers. The most of the issues are things like electricity, salaries, water. Those are the main critical things. When they are disconnected, you cannot continue. As long as maybe the Kenya Power agrees to wait and the water supplies, maybe you can try to push a bit. But if they disconnect, you have no choice.
I don't want to sound pessimistic. It is the education currently the responsibility of the government. Unless something is changed, I can tell you for sure the future is bleak. Most of the schools currently are on their knees, particularly the day schools that only wait for funds from the capitation. As we speak now, majority of the heads are playing hide and seek game with the suppliers because there is not enough funds in the school to meet and pay the suppliers. Two, the schools currently have laid off most of their BOM teachers. Qualified, experienced BOM teachers are laid off as a result of lack of funds. This now has compromised the quality of education that is taking place in our institutions. The same, this coupled by now overcrowding in classes because of lack of teachers. Now you have to bring some of this, break this some of classes and bring them into one class so that a teacher can have. Then that individual teacher, student, attachment is lost because of the number of students the teacher is handling. Then this has also led to low morale for the teachers because the few teachers that are in these schools are also overworked as a result of majority of these schools having laid off the BOM teachers. Then there is also the challenge of co-curriculum activities. The schools no longer cannot participate in all the events that are expected to be participated in co-curriculum activities because they cannot fund. So an opportunity for some of the learners is lost to expose them to some of these activities. So the situation is dire, and we are sincerely calling upon the government, because it was our hope that at least a second tranche will be released before we close the schools, because we fear that, as the chairman has alluded, we might not even continue with the schools to the end of the term. Of course, the lack of funds for also the support staff is there. So the challenge is there, and we are calling upon the government to meet this part of the bargain, so that our schools continue to the end of the term uninterrupted. Suppliers are on the knock of the heads, because a number of them are yet to be paid. That's why I said some of the heads are playing hide and seek with some of these suppliers. Of course, the other resources, particularly the computers, the lab equipment is also affected, and that has also compromised the quality of education.